this Wednesday, November 8th meeting of the Tallahassee City Commission. For those of you who are willing and able, please stand for the invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Almighty God, thank you for your peace and comfort provided to those impacted by the recent loss of loved ones in Texas and in our community. Embrace us with your love and love for others. As we approach Veterans Day, we ask a special blessing on those who have faithfully served our country's armed forces. We ask, oh God, that they and their families be blessed, and that we as a community continue to demonstrate our appreciation and admiration for their many sacrifices and service. Give us wisdom in the matters before us this evening. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Thank you. Commissioners, are there, I'm sorry, Mr. Manager, are there any agenda modifications?
Yes, sir. There's 4 additions to the agenda. Item 5.02, item 11.02, items 1305, and items 1306.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Ziffer, you want to join me?
Sure.
Right. Just a few presentations. I'd like to invite Mr. Antoine Wright, Executive Director of the Big Bend Habitat for Humanity. And do you want to invite your son to join you? Or is he on field trip? Doing homework. Earlier this year, the Tallahassee City Commission voted to sponsor the construction of 2 Big Bend Habitat for Humanity homes. That sponsorship has taken the form of financial support in the amount of $130,000 in volunteer manpower provided by City of Tallahassee employees. The building of the 2 homes officially began on August 19th. Each week, city employees volunteered their own time on Fridays and Saturdays to complete the home construction. All in all, the city employees have donated at least 400 volunteer hours to this project. Antoine, I've got a picture here of a couple of the city employees and department leaders that participate in this habitat build. I'd like you to come forward and receive this acknowledgement, and would also welcome you to have a few comments. This is the team, and will y'all give it up for those city employees who work so hard to
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners, and City of Tallahassee, all of its employees and various departments. On behalf of Big Bend Habitat, its board of directors, all of its current families and families before, we thank you from the bottom of our heart. It's truly been an amazing journey. We were on a very short wire. We were able to build 2 houses simultaneously in a condensed schedule, starting on August the 19th, and we just finalized and dedicated those houses yesterday. The homes will be occupied by the homeowners before Thanksgiving, so I'm looking forward to a turkey dinner. You guys are all invited. I don't think they know about that. But on our behalf, I have brought with me a signed photo. This is a photo of both homeowners, signed by them, and presented to the City of Tallahassee.
That's awesome.
So thank you.
Thank y'all very much. We appreciate it.
We now have a proclamation for Family Caregivers Month, and I hope I don't get their last name, say it wrong, but Attorney Victoria Hewler, did I say that?
It's Hewler, yeah.
Wow. Representing the Academy of Florida Elder Law Attorneys, the Florida State Guardianship Association, the Hewler-Wakeman Law Group in Tallahassee will be in attendance, which you are. And thank you for being here, and I'm going to read this proclamation. I am extensively involved in helping those with Alzheimer's. And so for me, this is a real honor to be able to read this. Whereas the theme for Family Caregivers Month 2017 is caregiving around the clock. And whereas caregiving can be 24 hours a day, 7-day-a-week job. And whereas the average family caregiver is a working mother of school-aged children. And whereas up to 70% of the time, the family caregiver, not the patient, manages the medications. And whereas 6 out of 10 family caregivers will work full-time or part-time in addition to juggling their caregiving responsibilities at home. And whereas ensuring that family caregivers get proper nutrition will help them maintain strength, energy, stamina, and a positive attitude. And whereas family caregivers must make sure they take time to rest and recharge. And whereas family caregivers must be prepared for emergencies. And whereas during Family Caregivers Month, we recognize the challenges family caregivers face when their loved ones need caregiving around the clock. Now, therefore, I, Gil Ziffer, for our Mayor Andrew Gillum, by the authority vested in me, for the City of Tallahassee, do hereby recognize November 2017 as Family Caregivers Month. Take care to give care in the City of Tallahassee. Thank you for all you do.
I want to thank Mr. Mayor and Commissioner Ziffer and all the commissioners for our great City of Tallahassee, and say that your leadership is phenomenal in recognizing the millions of caregivers around the country and in our state who give the equivalent of billions, that's with a B, billions of dollars of care that is unpaid by these family caregivers. And in fact, commissioners and Mr. Mayor, I am a caregiver myself of both a teenage daughter and a husband who has multiple sclerosis. So I completely understand the caregiving role. And again, thank you for your leadership.
Thank you very much.
Thanks again. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioners, we're now at the point in the agenda for citizens to be heard on agended items. Treasurer Clerk, are there any speakers?
Yes, Mayor, we do have several speakers tonight. The first will be David Roberts. I will ask speakers to come to the microphone to my right and their left. Each speaker will have 3 minutes for his or her remarks. We would appreciate it if you would begin by giving your name and address for the record. David Roberts is first, followed by Joe West.
My name is David Roberts. I live at 9905 Beaver Ridge Trail in Tallahassee. First, thank you to the city commissioners, deputy city manager, and the rest of the board. I'm an employee of the City of Tallahassee Underground Utilities and Public Infrastructure Department. I'm here on my personal time tonight, and I'd like to share my thoughts in defense of our organization, thoughts that I believe are reflective of many of the city employees. First and foremost, the recent allegations of corruption throughout UUPI are just not true. We are a group of passionate public servants. I stand in front of you today proud to be a city employee among a group of several proud city employees with good reason to be proud. Every day we work hard to improve the quality of life for our community, providing the utility and infrastructure services that are essential for the quality of life. Services that often go unnoticed or taken for granted by most citizens, at least until there's a problem. We routinely go above and beyond for our customers. We are the front line for our customers during severe weather events, during which we work around the clock to ensure, to ensure that our services remain available or that they're restored as quickly as possible to ensure the safety and minimize the inconvenience to our customers. And when it's not our community that's impacted, these same employees step up and assist our neighboring communities and neighboring states in their time of need. Lastly, We volunteer countless hours to our community, donating our personal time and resources to charities, informing and educating our customers at special events, supporting our neighborhoods, building homes, and building lasting relationships in our community. In closing, I'd like to ask one thing of our city leaders and our community. Do not be unduly influenced by the words of a few resentful employees or political naysayers. I speak to you tonight to refute the accusations of corruption and to assure our city leaders and our community that you can and should be proud of the Underground Utilities and Public Infrastructure Department. I know that I am.
Thank you very much.
Next speaker is Joe West, followed by Erwin Jackson.
Joe West, 2831 Dufton, Tallahassee. I have a rhetorical question I'd like to address to the Commission. If a city employee in any department was caught with a hand in the cookie jar, would he or she be put on administrative leave? If only a very small percentage of the allegations being slung about are true, our commissioners, administrators, and their staffs are at the very least guilty of dereliction of duty. Even if individuals are not behaving inappropriately, to idly stand by while others indulge themselves equally violates our trust. These public servants, by their silence, have chosen not to serve and need to be replaced. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Next speaker is Erwin Jackson. I do have other speakers, Mayor, but one is on a public hearing with historic preservation, and the others are unagended. So this is the last speaker at this portion of our meeting.
Bring one for the record. Dr. Erwin Jackson, Tallahassee Truth Teller, 1341 Jackson Bluff. I'm the self-appointed leader of the 83% of voters in Tallahassee who believe every city commissioner is a crook. I've personally determined that the other 17 have simply never heard of the commission. My shirt I'm wearing tonight spells commissioner a little differently, with one less S because we need less self-interest and an extra E because we need more ethics. I want this commission to know that a large number of concerned citizens want to express their dissatisfaction with this commission that plans to reward Rick Fernandez with a $20,000 per month paid vacation after he admitted to lying to this commission, lying to the public, accepting a bribe of $7,000 from a vendor, city lobbyist, and stealing construction material and city labor in excess of $10,000. The acting city manager has asked that our group speak at an agended item, but wait until after the public hearing because they only have 30 minutes in the early process. Thus, I'm asking that any discussion on item 13.06 or any vote be postponed until after the community has been given an opportunity to speak and was asked to wait till 6. Last week, after describing the illegal activities of Fernandez, Nancy Miller stated she didn't, she needed a lot more information, was not going to trust my opinion. On Saturday, Gil Ziffer offered to give Fernandez a $20,000 per month vacation if he would go away, wait out the outrage by citizens, and wait for it to die down. On Sunday, this commission sent a letter signed by all commissioners proclaiming that they really are not crooks. Commissioners, your letter sounded a lot like Tricky Dick Nixon years ago, who we all will remember went on television shaking his jowls back and forth saying, "I'm not a crook, I'm not a crook." Commissioners, the public did not believe Tricky Dick, and they don't believe you. It is time this commission starts to believe me and the facts I share with you bi-weekly. I was right about cats taking money from the biomass plant, Debbie Lightsey's crooked deferred comp scam. Gillum now still keeps $100,000 of that scam, never gave it back. John Marks took $150,000 per year from Honeywell for a $32 million no-bid contract. Scott's false real estate transactions are now being investigated by the FBI.
and Scott and Gillum's trips with contractors and lobbyists to New York and Las Vegas are also being investigated. I firmly believe that several members of this commission have violated federal laws and will certainly serve time in prison for their actions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Next.
I apologize. I had missed one speaker. There is one final speaker, and that's Curtis Baines.
Mr. Baines.
I do not have any other speakers for this portion of the meeting.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Curtis Baines, 1323 East Tennessee Street. I wanted to take just a moment to try to cover 3 items on your agenda, 11.02, 1305, and 1306, because I think they're all kind of interwoven. I would certainly urge you in 1305 to proceed with the statewide search for prospective city attorneys. And on 1102, I would also urge you to consider that favorably. All of this is tied into the ethical environment at City Hall. The Florida Commission on Ethics is not responsible for the ethical environment in City Hall. That's your responsibility. Now, you've spoken with the city manager, and I presume most of you, or some of you, several of you, have had private conversations regarding the issue at hand. And it's really, even if we assume there is no corrupt intent here, we are certainly left with, in my view, every appearance of inappropriate conduct. Now, that's something that you, setting the ethical tone for the city, are going to have to make up in your mind, or at least 3 of you, to decide whether or not that's sufficient or not sufficient for your purposes. One of the questions that we are ever facing now is, well, if the record is complete, if our information is accurate, if we have the complete story, and we really don't have that with any degree of certainty, and that's an issue that you, as a city commission, have to determine is the policy of the city with respect to what constitutes a public record, who has the authority to get rid of it, who has responsibility for maintaining it, and what kind of charges we're going to be making for public records to ensure that we provide some sense of accountability for city actions. And it all rests with you 5, not them. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. No other speakers in this section of the meeting?
Correct.
Any other folks who wish to speak during non-agenda items, we take those speakers up at the end of, toward the conclusion of the meeting. Commissioners, we're now at the point of consent. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve consent. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion passes unanimously. Commissioners, we're now at City Commission items, 11.01. It's the Airport Advisory Board.
Move approval, Mr. Mayor.
There's a motion and a second to approve.
Second.
All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Commissioners, I don't know if we provided to you, by the way, just with regard to the Airport Advisory Board, we did receive a letter this week from the Tallahassee, Greater Tallahassee Chamber of Commerce. I think all commissioners were copied on that. My recommendation there would be that we bring that up in the context of the commission retreat in January, where we might have an opportunity to delve a little bit deeper. Commissioner Richardson, I know you had thoughts on that. I don't know if you have any objection to the scheduling of it at that time. Okay, great. Commissioners, we're now on item 11.02, which is...
Mayor.
Yes.
Before you, since you brought that up, regarding this letter, is there going to, is the chamber doing any investigation? Are they bringing forward more information? I mean, if they're not, then I'd like to know, are we assigning our staff the task of investigating these authorities and finding out how they work and where they're located and that sort of thing? Because if we're going to have a conversation about an authority at the retreat, it would be nice to have a substantive conversation, and that's going to require some information.
I don't know the answer, and maybe Commissioners, if you might have an answer here. I don't know whether or not they plan on investigating and providing material of their own. But I do know I've seen tons of material that have come previously across this commission on this topic. I'm guessing by us deciding to put this on the commission retreat that we'll have it fully staffed, and we'll bring forward a complete item with material that we're able to consider.
Okay.
Commissioner Ziffer.
Commissioners, and clearly it must have happened quickly, and so nobody logged it in their memory. At the end of the last meeting, I actually raised this conversation about us having this discussion at our retreat, and I suggested that we reach out to, because I'd had a conversation with Gray Swoop, who did all the economic development work for us. He has got a pretty extensive background on airport authorities and the different ones that are available or options to us, and so I have mentioned that to Risco to perhaps reach out to him, have a conversation. If he thinks it's appropriate, have him present to us different options. If the chamber wants to send us material, they're more than welcome to. I have great confidence in Mr. Swoop, so if it's okay with you, I'd like to maybe suggest we pursue that angle.
No objection here. Appearing there are no objections, we'll leave that to the manager's staff to work his way through. Commissioners, I'll pass the gavel to Commissioner Ziffer. The next item is one that I added today, and it simply is, we have had some ongoing conversation at this commission about sort of public records. Commissioner Ziffer, I think at the last meeting, brought up the point of whether or not we wanted to look at other governments to consider changing the city's policy on that. I wasn't compelled at that time that was a policy change was what the move was, but I do recognize the significant importance of the current FBI investigation to the general public. And my office has been, prior to that, involved during the whole email situation in NGP, involved in the delivery of a whole slew of documents that we tried to make available, not at the request of just one entity. It was requested by one entity, but what we ended up doing was releasing our documents statewide to anyone who may have interest in reviewing them. And again, I think it was compliant with what we were expected to do via public records law, and we had to present them anyway, and I certainly didn't feel that there was an issue in producing those. So my recommendation with regard to all of the records that the government has had to compile as relates to the FBI investigation is that we make all those public records requests that we supply to the FBI available for free and on a City of Tallahassee website once they have been appropriately reviewed and redacted for any exempt and confidential information.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. I'm sorry, I'm not in charge. You are.
Okay, do I pass it back now? Or,
Nope.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Commissioner Maddox.
At the last meeting, you're right, Mr. Mayor, this arose out of the original request for your emails, and there was discussion of public records requests that were coming in from all different parties because you're running for governor, and what the cost could be associated with that on each and every one of these. I have absolutely no problem with any documents as related to me and my position, full and total release of those at no cost. So I'll gladly support the motion. And my objections last time were based on the information that we got from the treasurer clerk and the city attorney, and my concern about dealing with them on a one-by-one basis rather than an overall policy. If we're going to vote on them one by one, I have absolutely no problem with any documents as it relates to me. And I think that we should put all the documents that have been requested in both sets of subpoenas, as well as your original documents that were requested in the investigation with the Leon County Sheriff's Office.
Commissioner Miller, then Commissioner Richardson.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be clear that this is just in regards to the FBI investigation. Thank you.
I believe it is.
It is, and I'll just clarify the reason for that. I am completely compelled that what we don't want to do is find ourselves in a situation where we can have, as we have seen before, certain folks in this community who make it their business to basically tie up the government and its employees with exhaustive public records requests, which do cost money, which do take time, which do take people off of their regular jobs in the government. I know during the original Leon County Sheriff's Office investigation, we spent in an inordinate amount of time. Everybody is sort of going through and producing that. As you know, there was a threat of lawsuit. This commission decided in response to that we didn't want to go down that road, which was fine, and we produced every single part of it. And so that is now publicly available, and happy to have that added to the website. I simply called out the FBI one because of the significant importance to the community and the strong public interest in that. But this is not a recommendation for a wholesale policy change at the government.
Is that everyone clear? Commissioner Richardson.
Question first, has anyone else paid for those materials at this point?
Which ones? We had a previous request for 2 sets of materials that were related to 2 separate FBI-related subpoenas. We had 2 parties who have paid us to cover those costs in that case. We have not had anyone in relation to the most recent subpoena. We've not had anyone come forward and make payment there or pursue it further, other than one initial request that had not been followed up on by the requester.
So then my next question would be, if this motion is passed, are they entitled to a refund?
Commissioner, I would be in favor of that. I think everything related to the FBI investigation, including the records that we previously made available, we should upload to the public website. I think the staff can probably work through how to do that with integrity now that we've made it available to everybody and some people have paid for it. I don't think it's a fair thing that we would keep that money and then again make those records available to everybody.
Okay, so
Commissioner Miller,
would that need to be an amendment? Because
you're probably right. Yeah.
is that an amendment?
Well, no, I'm not prepared to make the amendment because I'm going to reluctantly support this. I just feel it's a slippery slope, because then we have to decide when people come to us in other situations, well, this is as much an interest of the public as the FBI investigation, or I wouldn't be asking or making the public records request. And then we've got to decide, well, is this, and so I don't know. I mean, I just think it's a slippery slope that we're going down. I certainly understand the basis for the motion and what you're recommending, but it's a slippery slope nonetheless, because I don't know that anything where there's a public records request has any less of an appeal to the public than even this. I mean, this is salacious, of course, and some people want to hear about it and read about it and write about it. But I would think that any public records request made of our government is as much an interest of the public as anything else. And if we make this exception, then how do we explain to someone coming to us in the future that, yeah, well, we did it here, and because all of this is very subjective. We're making a subjective policy decision here, and I think it would just be difficult to tell the next person coming before us, well, yeah, we did it for them, but we can't do it for you. It was just, we thought that was more of a compelling public interest than yours, and I don't know.
Commissioner Miller?
I don't think that comparing the massive amounts of requests that we get that are that someone just feels like basically harassing the government by piling work on our staff. We've had to hire new people in the Treasurer Clerk's office just to fill these requests over the last several years. It's all coming primarily from 1 or 2 people, and I don't really think that I'm willing to put the taxpayers' money toward the aggrandizement of those individuals. Now, that said, with the FBI investigation, I don't see any similarity to that and this at all. And that's why I asked the question, is this specific to that investigation?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I agree with regard to this thing there's nothing that I think this government has experienced of a similar nature, certainly not up to the point that I've been in it. And frankly, prior to the sheriff's thing, I don't think that this government had experienced anything at that level of depth, either. So I don't know. I get the point around the slippery slope. I just kind of feel like we'll know it when we see it and when we experience it. I think all of us up here have become pretty accustomed to seeing these things come through. This, to me, seems of a different nature, and that's why I think we could take this government a long way by simply saying, whatever it is, we'll make available on a public searchable form for anybody who wants access.
There is a motion and there is a second to provide all material associated with the FBI request, the subpoenas, to make them.
And the Leon County Sheriff's Office investigation.
I'm happy to
Okay.
I'm happy to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Made public on the talgov.com website. There has not been a motion regarding the repayment of any fees, so until that happens, I'm assuming that's not the case. So all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Passes 4-1.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Mayor, I have one too as well. Go ahead.
If I may, we'll work as quickly as possible to get that done. Obviously, some of the material had previously been provided, so it'll be more readily available. The more recent information we'll get to work on as soon as we can, and we'll bring you a report back at here in a couple of weeks, so just to give you an update at some point.
Got it. Commissioner Maddox.
Yes, sir. I've given a lot of thought how to get around people intentionally trying to cause work versus legitimate needs of the public and certainly you want to give public documents, they belong to the public. And I've thought about it, and I think the best way, this actually came to me thinking about how Commissioner Ziffer at the ethics workshop brought forward auditing the city commission travel expenses or office expenses, the office budgets for the city commissioners. And the point was that city commissioners are different than regular employees, and they should be annually audited, and the public has access to that. I think the way that we overcome worrying about what the next request and the next request is that all of us agree to release the last 5 years of our emails at City Hall. Staff will go through the work on doing that over the last 5 years. You put them all up on the website. Anybody that has any kind of questions at all about a public email will be able to go on the website and look at it directly from each commissioner. So I move that.
There's a motion, no second. Commissioners, we're now at introduction of ordinances.
Can we, if we could, I'd like to bring that back for more discussion at the next meeting. I think that has merit. There are other cities that do that. In fact, some cities make it available instantly.
I mean, it's open and transparent. It's there. They can all go back for 5 years. They can look at anything. It would stave off public records requests that come from people that require additional staff work. We do the staff work up front that we need to do, and then place all those things on the website. They're easily searchable. It's transparent. It's open, and everyone can see whatever's there with emails. I think it solves a lot of problems, and it's open.
Could we also, in bringing that item back, because there are now two folks who would like to do that, I'll add my voice to the third, any government-related text messages that where commissioners have exchanged information, either with citizens or amongst, well, certainly probably not amongst each other, but with citizens relating to the business of the government. I think we've had some examples where we have learned of things up here on the dais where some folks were contacted, others were not, and it clearly had some relationship to city business. Maybe we can add that as part of the inquiry as to what's the best way of documenting that and then making that publicly available and searchable.
Absolutely.
And also, add to that, we have to establish some system where we capture those.
Yeah.
And I don't know how we do that, but we need to do that so that it's captured not on our phones only, but it's also captured through some system. I'm not sure what that is, but we should do that.
Agree.
I had assumed that was part of what the mayor's suggestion was, so we'll include that as well.
Great.
Yeah. Commissioners, we're now on to introduction of ordinances. City Attorney.
Item number 12.01 is ordinance number 17-0-35 and 17-0-34. I'm going to wait on the introduction of that, ladies and gentlemen, until we get to item number 1301, which is a discussion of the need and the rationale for that particular ordinance. So I will introduce it once we complete item 1301. I'll go to item number 12.02. It's ordinance number 17-0-36. First and only public hearing is scheduled for December 6, 2017 at 6 p.m. in these chambers. The title of the ordinance is an ordinance amending section 21-346, 21-347, 21-353, 21-354, 21-356, 21-357, 21-376, 21-378, 21-381, and 21-402 of the City of Tallahassee General Code relating to discharges to the wastewater treatment or wastewater system and pretreatment. Item number 12.03 is ordinance number 17-0-42. The first and only hearing on this proposed ordinance is scheduled for December 6 at 6 p.m. in these chambers. Title of the ordinance is Ordinance City of Tallahassee, Florida, amending Section 6 of the Charter of the City of Tallahassee to annex within the corporate area of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, upon adoption of said ordinance, property being situated in Leon County, Florida, in accordance with the voluntary annexation provisions of Section 171.044 Florida statutes. The next item for introduction is item number 12.04. It's ordinance number 17-0-44. First and only public hearing on this proposed ordinance is scheduled for December 6, 2017 in these chambers. The title of that ordinance is an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, amending sections 14-1.001, 14-4.302, 14-4.304, 14-4-306, 14-4.307, 14-4.310, 14-4.316, 14-319, 14-4.325, 14-4.331, 14-4.335, and creating in Article 4 sections 14-4.400 through 14-4.999 of the Code of General Ordinances of the City of Tallahassee relating to firefighters' pension benefits and contributions. The next ordinance is item number 12.05. It's ordinance 17-Z-37. The first and only public hearing is scheduled for December 6, 2017 in these chambers. The title of that ordinance is an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, amending the Canopy Plan Unit Development Concept Plan on the official zoning map of the City of Tallahassee, established and adopted by the City Commission. Item number 12.09, the next ordinance, it is ordinance number 17-Z-40. The first and only public hearing is scheduled again for December 6, 2017. The title of that ordinance is an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, designating and including additional territory as and in office-residential 2, that is OR2, on the official zoning map of the City of Tallahassee, adopted and established by the City Commission. Finally, item number 12.07 is ordinance number 17-Z-41. The first and only public hearing on that proposed ordinance is scheduled for December 6, 2017, also at 6 p.m. Title of that ordinance is an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, designating and including additional territory as and in PUD, that is Plan Unit Development, on the official zoning map of the city of Tallahassee, adopted and established by the City Commission. Mayor, I would like to have items number 12.02 through 12.07 deemed to be introduced.
Right. Without objection, those items are introduced. Commissioners, we're now on to policy formation. Item 13.01, City Manager.
Yes, sir. Commissioners, Mayor, and Commissioners, this item addresses the city's recently completed water and wastewater rate studies. The studies were begun earlier this year and were prepared by the city's rate consultant, Leidos. The recommendations in the study are the result of a lengthy process that incorporated input from stakeholders, including the Citizens Advisory Committee. The recommended rate changes are contained in the ordinances proposed for introduction today. The changes are expected to result in sufficient revenues to meet the Commission's commitment to fund the capital upgrades required to ensure the city continues to provide safe, reliable service that Tallahassee expects. David Wheeler is here to introduce Craig Shepard from Leidos, who will present the results of the study. David?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. As Reese told you, I'm David Wheeler. I do utility rate work for the city, which, as you can imagine, gets me invited to all the best parties. This time, I'd like to introduce to you Craig Shepard, who is a principal with Leidos Engineering, the city's longtime rate consultant. You may remember Leidos as R.W. Beck. They've gone through a couple of acquisitions since that time. Craig has over 30 years experience in the utility industry, and he's worked with our city for many, many years. He's quite familiar with really all our utility systems. Most recently, he performed a solid waste rate study for the city, and today he's here to briefly share with you the results and recommendations from the just completed water and wastewater studies. These studies were done early this year as part of the city's scheduled utility rate studies, the next of which will be the electric and natural gas studies, which we expect to begin early next year. I don't think I've told Craig that yet, but and with that, I'll turn it over to Craig.
Let's see, where's the mouse? Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's been a pleasure the last few months be working with the highly professional staff and management of the city. Just a quick review of the systems we're talking about. We did both studies together, the water and the wastewater, but some of the things we had to do to calculate all the numbers were to break it apart into water and then wastewater. Just a quick review, the water distribution system covers 85,000 customers approximately, and the system includes water mains, wells, valves, storage tanks, and fire hydrants. And as you know, some parts of the downtown are over 100 years old. On the wastewater side, there are about 72,000 customers, and that system includes piping, pumping stations, pressure pipes, manholes, and this system is operated and maintained 24/7 by a trained and licensed staff. Just a general review of the rate study process. We reviewed the 2017 budget and adjusted that budget for known changes, including the 2018 budget. We reviewed the 5-year capital plan and then developed the revenue requirements for the next 5 years. We took those revenue requirements and compared it to the revenues that would be produced from the existing rates, and then finally design rates according to city policies and industry standards. Some of the major inputs and considerations: first, city policies, then also the master infrastructure plan that has already been approved by the City Commission, regulatory compliance, and we had to project the number of customers and usage of the next 5 years. Had to take into consideration conservation trends. The city has a conservation program on water usage. The main expenses were the operation and maintenance expense. Also, we had to look at the 5-year capital plan and how to fund that. Also consider the bond rating agencies. As you know, when you go out to borrow money, the bond rating agencies rate your bonds as to how good a risk they are. I'd just like to quote the most recent Standard & Poor rating review said that the water and sewer rates on a combined basis are competitive with its peers in the region. And also they recommended the high rating of AA based on the city's good operational and financial management policies and practices. So we want to continue with that. Just to look at the last several months, we've refined the revenue requirements based on the known changes, including the 2018 budget. We've refined the financing plan to pay for the capital improvement programs for both water and wastewater. And in that, we determined the amount of bonds that should be issued to fund this plan. And we also met with the Citizen Advisory Committee and other customers. While I was at the Citizen Advisory Committee this summer, there was a question raised when we were saying there was probably going to be a significant rate increase, if that could be phased in over several years. So we went back and the rates we're recommending now are phased in over a 3-year period. One of the considerations I said was the conservation trends. As you can see, the last from 2007 to 2016, total water sales have declined from 11.2 billion gallons to about 8.7 billion gallons in 2016. And as looking at the average use per residential customer, it's declined from about 7,000 gallons a month to about 5,000 per month. And we
Is there an explanation? What's the?
Yes, well, the city has a conservation program. They have rates where the more you use, the more you pay. That incentivizes customers to conserve, and just the general program, the information provided by the city, the benefits of water conservation. People are conserving, and they're saving money also.
Mr. Mayor, this is a direct result of your leadership and the Commission's leadership to encourage conservation, not only in energy but water. And we see that direct correlation between customers investing in energy conservation and also in water conservation through habits and actually monetary investment.
Thank you. Oh, Commissioner, I apologize. Commissioner Miller.
Do you have this broken down on a per capita basis?
This last slide is per residential customer, so that it's 7,000.
That's per household then?
Per household, yeah.
Okay. This particular one we're looking at right now?
Yes. It used to be around 7,000 gallons a month. Now it's around 5,000 gallons per household. And without going through all the numbers, this is the breakdown we had to use to calculate the revenues, number of customers by class, and the gallons billed by class. This is for water. And just to give you a general idea in a pie chart, how the total revenue requirements are broken out. It's mostly operating expenses, but a good chunk of that you'll see in red is infrastructure spending, or infrastructure funding over the next 5 years.
Does that include maintenance and capital improvements, both?
Yeah, the pie chart does, yes.
That green section where you said infrastructure.
Infrastructure, here's a breakdown of infrastructure spending and funding is based on system upgrades, system expansion, and then replacing the aging infrastructure. And this goes historical and projected. You see historical, you have been spending a significant amount. 2018, there is a jump. You probably know on North Monroe, there's a major project including about $4 million on water to replace and expand the system on North Monroe. So you'll see that jump there. And then sort of an increase in the next 5 years compared to the previous 5 years. Now switching to wastewater, it's the same type of thing. We break down between residential and commercial class, number of customers, and the gallons billed. On wastewater, the bills are based on water usage. That's how you get your sewer bill. And again, general pie chart, mostly operating expenses, but here an even bigger portion of the revenue requirements are for infrastructure funding. And here's the year-by-year capital plan for wastewater. Again, in 2018, there's a jump for the North Monroe improvements. Also on the system expansion, there's a major pump station on the south side that's included in there. And going out in the future, slightly more infrastructure spending. And just one more graph, just sort of showing the general trend. Capital spending or capital funding is increasing over the years from 2018 to 2022. And another graph showing how it's increased from the last 5 years to the next 5 years, and how the breakdown between upgrades, expansions, and replacing infrastructure, both water and sewer. And before I get to the recommended rates, considering what's happened in other utilities around the state, now this is other utilities, this is not Tallahassee, there have been, especially after hurricanes, system failures, water outages where either the whole system is down or a partial system is down. You've seen stories of sewage spills in the streets, not in Tallahassee. You've seen boil water notices after a hurricane or after a storm, or just in general, there may be boil water notices. That hasn't happened in Tallahassee. Rate increases in the last couple months. Brevard County utilities raised their rates 5%. Seminole County, the private utility, the PSC approved over 100% rate increase last month. So this, compared to other utilities, you're looking good. So we detailed in the ordinance the increases. In January 2018 is the proposed effective date for the first rate increase. As we say, we have a phased-in rate increase. The biggest one would be in 2018. And you'll see a typical residential customer using 5,000 gallons would have an increase of approximately $3 a month. Small business would have an increase of about $5 a month. And then the rest of the phase-in is in January 2019 and 2020 both. Approximately a 4.7% increase in water and a 2.1% increase in wastewater. And I'd like to point out this is in addition to the annual consumer price index increase. And the other rate change would be the rate structure tiers. Right now on the water side there are 3 tiers. The more you use, the more you pay per gallon. The current structure is the first tier is up to 7,000 gallons, then from 7,000 to 20,000, then over 20,000. We recommend to change that structure to be more in line with what people are using now. The first 5,000 gets up to the average use, the next 10,000, and then over 15,000 gallons. Slight change in the blocks.
Commissioner Miller?
Could you go, remember the slide that I asked you about, the household slide?
Okay.
Wasn't it somewhere like $5,200 a month?
It is about, yeah, 5,200 a month, which is 15.
So most people would not, they'd
Most
fall in
people
this
would not
bottom
get on
tier.
those up
Okay.
blocks, right. Okay, so how do you compare to other utilities in Florida? This takes a while to prepare this. I mean, it's hard to get rates for everybody, but we and the staff helped put this together. You see the bold number 6365 is the average combined water and wastewater bill for a residential customer using 5,000 gallons. You're at the middle or lower end of this. And as you can see, some of the cities are significantly higher than what you are. And that would be in January. That shows the January rate with the rate increase. One other thing to mention, I talked about the capital plan a lot. One measure of how well you're doing on your capital plan is the number of sewer spills or sewer backups, and that happens occasionally. And in 2007 or 8, you were averaging around 24 backups. In 2016, it has improved to just one backup that year, and I think so far this year there haven't been any. So you can tell that the infrastructure is being maintained. So in summary,
I'm glad to hear that.
in summary, we recommend these rate increases for water and wastewater, and this would enable the city to accomplish its capital plans, enable the city to maintain and expand its infrastructure, and enable the city to maintain a very favorable bond rating, AA and AA+. And as you can see, the rates are comparable to or lower than other Florida utilities. This would enable the city to continue to provide safe, clean, and reliable service. And that's my question.
Thank you. Commissioners, the city attorney has to read something into the record related to this item.
Yeah, the action, Mayor and Commissioners, is to introduce the two ordinances dealing with water increase and wastewater increase. They were listed under item number 12.01, and we did not deal with them at the time until the presentation. These are the ordinances that I would like introduced relating to those two topics. The first one is ordinance number 17-0-35. The first and only public hearing is scheduled for December 6, 2017 at 6 p.m. in these chambers. The title of that ordinance is an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, amending section 21-281 and 21-284 of the City of Tallahassee Code relating to water service, including applicable charges and rates. This second ordinance to be introduced relates to wastewater treatment. It's ordinance number 17-0-34. First and only public hearing on this proposed ordinance is scheduled for December 6, 2017 at 6 p.m. in these chambers. The title of that ordinance is an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, amending section 21-402 of the City of Tallahassee Code relating to sewer service, including applicable charges and rates. If we could have those two ordinances deemed to be introduced.
Without objection, show those items introduced. Thank you, City Attorney. Commissioners, we're now on item 13.02, City Manager.
Yes, sir. Before I move there, if I could take a moment, the good work that the underground utilities do each day, many of the individuals are in the audience, or some of them at least, and I'd like to take a moment to recognize them. That topic is very appropriate. Excellent work. Craig mentioned the backups that we had not very many years ago, and that's a really terrible thing for our community when that actually happens, because there's clogs in the system. They've been very proactive in their investment, not only in their investment in the capital, but their investment in the process and the energy that goes into it. I'd like to just take a moment to thank them for their good hard work on that.
Well done. Commissioner Miller.
Well, as a follow-up to that, I just wanted to, I want to thank them for the fact that they're managing a system that did not go out and did not fail anywhere throughout the city in either last year's storm or this year's storm. That was a pretty amazing feat. So I'm sure on behalf of everybody in the city who continue to have water and continue to have sewer services during those storms and afterwards, we all appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioners, well, it's on you, Mr. Manager.
Mayor and Commissioners, item 1302, at your last meeting on October 25th, you directed staff to evaluate the expansion of the utility loan program to include a loan for the replacement of failing water pipes in private homes. Staff has evaluated the issue and recommends the expansion of the water and sewer loan program to include residential loans for the replacement of aged water pipes in private dwellings. Staff recommends that this measure be approved as a pilot program in order to evaluate its effectiveness. An item will be brought back to you for consideration at the conclusion of the pilot program if you so approve. Kim Meeks is here to answer questions if you may have them.
I'll move option one.
Second.
There's a motion and a second on option one. Great,
With a comment,
great work.
Big shout out to the people in the northwestern part of the city, because they are, it's because of their public meeting, and one of our fine folks here tonight was a presenter at that meeting, that this all came about. I mean, that was something that they asked. Remember, we talked about the fact that they have a lot of problems with the pipes that are in their homes, and that's part of the city. And so I hope we can get the word out to them through their homeowners association that actually they get what they asked for. So thanks to staff for moving this so quickly.
Thank you for bringing the idea, Commissioner. There's a motion and a second to approve staff recommendation. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion passes 4-0. Commissioner Maddox out of chambers. Commissioner Ziffer.
Mr. Mayor, this is one of those things where, you know, it's like it's a good, it's a bad moment, but for me, I think I'm ready to go ahead and move down to the other end of the dais.
You just want to get away from me.
That's where I started. I like it down there. So I am going to move that City Commissioner Curtis Richardson, with his many years of public service, I know that you are proud of the fact that you live on the south side. You guys moved down there 20-plus years, and you bring us so much wealth of knowledge in your years on the school board and also in the legislature, and it's about time we made you Mayor Pro Tem, so I move that.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to elect Commissioner Richardson, Mayor Pro Tem. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, no. Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, Commissioner.
Do I get to give my
We move
acceptance
now?
speech?
Yes.
So we move now?
You just got invited to a lot more events, a lot more proclamations. Commissioners,
Mr. Mayor, please show me as an aye on that one as well.
yes, indeed. Unanimous approval. Commissioners are now on item 13.04. Treasurer Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Commissioners, item deals with our investment consultant. Following an RFP process a number of years ago, the City Commission awarded that contract to Siegel Advisors, and they are nearing the end of their initial 5-year term, which will end December 31st of 17. The award and contract provide an option for a 5-year renewal. Staff have looked at that. We believe Siegel's done a good job for us. We've also discussed it with our Investment Advisory Committee, who support our recommendation to exercise that 5-year renewal option.
Move option 1.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve option 1. Seeing no comments, all in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion passes unanimously. Commissioners, we're now on item 13.06, and I'll turn that over to the Treasurer Clerk and the City Attorney.
05?
I'm sorry, 05. I skipped.
05, yes.
05. I apologize to both the Treasurer Clerk and the City Attorney.
Mayor, Commissioners, item 13.05 is bringing back to you a recommendation concerning filling the city attorney position upon my retirement at the end of January. There was some discussion the last commission meeting dealing with concerns and process. We carefully reviewed the transcript of that discussion, and Mr. Cook and I think we have included and dealt with all those recommendations. The agenda item identifies the places where we will place advertisement beginning tomorrow if you approve this tonight. It also, the agenda item includes a timeline to have the appointment completed by the end of January. The agenda item also includes a sample of the advertisement that we intend to place in the Tallahassee Democrat as well as the Florida Bar News and other places. There's also a copy as an attachment of the city attorney job description, which has been updated. We did in fact consult with Martha Barnett, one of the most recognized and valued members of the local bar, and in terms of a review committee appointed from citizens who are not currently in any way connected with the city or doing business with the city. And there we have an option for you to consider. Our recommendation would be to, under 2A, that each of you would appoint someone from the outside that would make a total of 5 persons on that review committee. Alternatively, if for whatever reason a majority of you don't want to do that, then we've made a second option under the appointment process for the outside review committee, that the city treasurer, clerk, attorney, and auditor would each appoint a outside citizen, again, someone that is currently not doing any business with the city and recognized in the community. I'll be happy to answer any questions on this process. We would like to get it approved with amendments if there's a majority that wants to amend the process in any way.
Would you, how soon would you like the recommendations of names?
We're going to advertise for at least 10 days before and set a deadline for applications of December the 8th. So there'll be at least 10 days we'll give each of you to consider the appointment. And obviously we'd like a variety and diversity of that group.
Got it.
I'll move, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Commissioner.
I'll move option 1 and 2A.
Second.
I would.
There's a
add
motion and a
substitute on
second for
2A.
option 1 and 2A. Commissioner Miller.
I guess, well, maybe Commissioner Ziffers, I understood the first option to be that we just did it the way we normally do, but I see that you have incorporated the Citizens Committee in. I think it's just absolutely, so I'm seconding your motion. I think it's absolutely essential at this point that we invite some outside public in to be part of our processes. It's such a flurry of just madness out on the street right now about lack of transparency. I think that a group made up of people who are known and well respected in the community to look at these applicants, to make sure that the advertisements are definitely distributed far and wide throughout Florida, and then to determine in conjunction with the city attorney's office and I think it's the treasurer clerk's office and the human resources department to make sure that they do meet all the qualifications. I think that's a great way to open this up. So I wholeheartedly second that motion.
Great. There's a motion and a second. If there's no objection, Commissioner Maddox.
Just quick discussion, and this is uniform for what we've done in the past on many different openings in this government, so it's nothing out of the norm.
Commissioners, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion passes unanimously. Commissioners, final action item in policy formation and direction, 13.06, and that goes to the treasurer clerk and the city attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll take that one. As you know, the city manager volunteered to take administrative leave effective last Monday, October the 30th, and this is your first opportunity to meet as a commission since that time. So there are a couple of action items that we've put before you in the agenda item. The first of those is to approve administrative leave with pay for the city manager in accordance with the communication that he provided to each of you. That option provides for that leave to continue until such time as the complaint before the Florida Commission on Ethics is resolved, does provide, or until you provide further direction as a city commission. The second part of this item.
We're going to go ahead and act on that first, and then we'll come back to the other. Commissioner Ziffer?
I'll move option 1 with the following amendment, and that is that we bring this back at our commission meeting in December, because by that time, hopefully we'll have heard from the Florida Commission on Ethics, or some of us may choose to change the paid administrative leave.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the recommendation and reschedule this for further discussion at our December meeting. I beg your pardon?
December 8th.
The December 8th
Right.
meeting. Commissioners, if there's no discussion on that item, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion passes unanimously. Second,
Move option 2.
if you could just introduce it, and then we'll take the motion.
I'll do that.
Second.
Do that, Mayor. The second item is to designate an acting city manager in Mr. Fernandez's absence, and effectively on a routine basis, family vacation and the like. Deputy City Manager Reese Goad has served in his absence, and in fact, he has done so since October the 30th. But given that it's not routine for the city manager to be absent for an extended period of time, we thought it was appropriate for you to affirm who your designee is.
Right. Commissioners, there's a motion and a second for option 2. Commissioner Ziffer.
Just a clarification that this is designating Mr. Goad as the acting city manager unless in his absence, another member of the executive team would serve, correct? Because the way it reads, we're not specifically designated him, correct?
I take it as we're designating him.
Okay.
Yeah, as I hear it, the action is to designate Mr. Goad as acting city manager.
And he is interim as interim. Let's make sure this is clear that we're talking about interim, and I'm assuring the public of that because I've heard a lot of discussion about, well, for how long and on and on and on. And so this is an interim appointment.
Okay.
Yes.
Commissioner Miller, that's as the option 2 notes, that also includes until such time as the matter is resolved by the Florida Commission on Ethics, so that addresses the item you're talking about.
Yes, City Attorney.
I erred when I said December 8th. The next meeting is December 6th.
December 6th. Thank you. Commissioners, there's a motion and a second on this item. If there's no further discussion, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Miller, followed by
I'd like
Commissioner
to,
Maddox.
Just address this just briefly. I don't want anyone to think that we have not taken this extremely seriously. Everybody up here on this board, I'm sure, I don't know because I haven't talked to them about it, but the fact is that I'm sure that it has been first and foremost on the minds of all of us. I know I myself have spent probably a dozen hours in conference with members of the public and the staff and so on about this problem that we have here. It is a significant problem. It's a problem that we have to make sure the city continues to run. And thanks for all these folks who are actually, without missing a beat, going forward. And I would say that shout out to the assistant city managers too. They have come together and they are sharing the workload. Mr. Reese Goad is leading the effort, but he's in partnership with the other assistant city managers and with the staff. And without all of you, without all of the staff, without their working together, this would have been a major disruption in services to the city. So I want to take this opportunity to shout out to them and sincerely hope that everyone prays that this is resolved very, very soon.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Maddox.
Yes, sir. I was going to ask, since we're done with our action items and we have some time before the 6 o'clock, if we can just take the unagendaed speakers quickly now.
No objection. We'll go ahead and proceed with the unagendaed speakers.
Thank you, Mayor. On unagendaed speakers, the first form I have has a number of individuals named. I'm not sure which one is speaking for the group. Terrence Smith, Brandon Jones, and Samuel Gelabert, I believe. And if each of you is speaking individually, that's fine. But you'll have 3 minutes for your remarks, just as with our earlier speakers, if you're here for that portion of the meeting. If you'll give a name and address, you may begin.
Hello, my name is Terrence Smith. I live at 1001 Ocala, apartment 102. First and foremost, we would like to say thank you to all the councilmen and women for allowing us to address you all today. Upon participating in a class project for our social innovation and entrepreneurship class at Florida State University, we discovered that as of today, November 8th, 2017, that there are over 14,000 children in the foster care system of Florida alone. Through extensive research with foster cares in Tallahassee, such as the Florida I'm sorry, the Florida Baptist Children's Home, Boys Town of North Florida, we discovered that each child is allowed at roughly $200 a year to spend on clothing. Now, considering that the average price of shoes is $72 and the average price of pants is $28, that leaves each child with $100 to spend over the course of 12 months. Now, if we break that down, that is roughly $9 per month. So that means that if that child chose to spend that $9 on a shirt, he or she would have to wear that shirt for 30 days in a row. This does not include basic necessities such as underwear, socks, or anything of that nature.
Thank you again. My name is Samuel Gelibert. I'm at 3105 Chalfont Lane. So our purpose is not just to raise awareness on this issue, but is to put forth and gather as much effort as possible to fix it. We are implementing a social aspect into our clothing brand, replicating the theory of Tom's one-for-one business structure, where a customer can buy a pair of shoes and then a pair of shoes is donated across seas. The only difference is we're impacting children of foster care in our local backyard. We're doing this by, for each piece of clothing purchased with Regali, we are giving a child in foster care in Tallahassee a piece of clothing as well.
Again, thank you. My name is Brandon Jones. I reside at 2738 West Tharp Street. This is merely just a class project, as stated before, but we felt a sense of obligation to actually make a difference. And as we wrap up this class project, we would like to take full force into changing the lives of foster kids. We currently are working on the groundworks and such as building relations with local foster cares and actually partnering with the many nonprofit organizations. And we want to empower every child in foster care by enriching their self-confidence through the means of fashionable and trendy clothing. If you guys are willing to and able to support and give us advice, we would deeply appreciate it. We would like to leave off with a quote. What you wear says a lot. Let's make a statement for foster kids with Regali. Thank you.
That's fantastic.
Thank you,
Thank
Mayor.
you.
Fantastic. Thank
Could
you.
I-
I'd love if we could get Kimball to get with them. What a great project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Commissioner. Commissioner Miller, followed by Commissioner Ziffer.
Guys, thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. This is really touching. What I'd like to ask you to do is to write this up and exactly what you want to do, what a little description of the program, what you want to do, how we can encourage other people to help, and then send that information to each of our offices so that we can circulate it on our social media, on our Facebook pages, and that sort of thing. Okay?
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ziffer.
The other thing is, and I'm not sure if you're busy then, but I would suggest you come back again December 6th, and here's why.
Right.
This is going to run for 30 days on WCOT, this city commission meeting. The one in December is going to run probably 5 weeks, I think. So I would suggest you come back, because if you say the exact same thing again, or you might revise your message. I mean, I know a lot of other people come to our meetings and say the same things over and over again. But if you were to come, I think your message is a lot more powerful. And I suggest you come back and say the message again, because that would be almost 11 weeks of the same message, and that's a good thing.
Okay, thank you so much.
Great. Awesome job.
All right, have a great day.
So we'll
Thank
see
you.
you in December.
Next speaker.
Next speaker is Ben Poitevin, followed by Brian Jackson. And Mayor, when we started taking speakers, there was a sudden flood, so we'll take speakers as long as you want them. I probably got 10 speakers or so.
Sure.
And if
Great.
we
We'll
need to take
go
a
until
break-
5:30, and then we'll break.
My name is Ben Poitevin. I live at 2341 Limerick Drive. My purpose for appearing here today is to ask that you reconsider your vote that you recently taken regarding the Ethics Board, wherein you imposed two very difficult, improbable, and impossible standards on the board. The board cannot function very well, as well, and when you require that all complaints to the Ethics Board be in writing and sworn. The board relies on confidential, anonymous complaints. Anyone who is accused of an ethics violation has a right to be heard. You have a right to confront the evidence. You have a right to a proper investigation. You have a right to confidentiality until there is some effort, some evidence that you are perhaps in violation. I would encourage you to understand the procedures of the Board of Ethics and know that no one is at risk regarding their political future just because an anonymous complaint has been made on anyone. I'd like to read to you, if I may. Calls are received at the local office on the tips line. The phone is a standalone instrument which does not provide caller ID, and conversations are not recorded. The information is given to law enforcement, and they complete the investigation. The information is anonymous. The complainant is anonymous. That, of course, is the Big Bend Crime Stoppers language, where the city, through the Crime Stoppers, encourages citizens to make anonymous complaints on crimes. My question must be, therefore, why do you discourage citizens from making complaints, making allegations with the Board of Ethics? Imagine, if you will, that you witness a crime and you know that you should call the police, but you are afraid of revenge or a lawsuit if you do so. What's the solution? Make the report anonymously, of course. But when you try, the police refuse to take your information unless you come down and give them a signed statement, thereby making your name known. So you're afraid to give them the information, and you don't. In reality, that doesn't happen. Tallahassee Police Department, the Sheriff's Office, FDLE, the FBI, the U.S. Secret Service, charged with protecting the President, the Florida Department of Business Regulation, regulating thousands of professions, take anonymous complaints. The Florida Department of Health, charged with regulating the medical profession, takes anonymous complaints.
Excuse me, that's 3 minutes.
Thank you very much for your time, sir. Next speaker.
Next speaker is Brian Jackson, then Harry Brown.
If I could have one request, I would like to wait until 6 for my 3-minute speech, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. It'll be after the public hearings.
After the break, yep.
Correct. After the public hearings. Yes.
Okay. Next speaker then is Harry Brown.
Hello. Hi. This is my Bible again. I swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God. I'm Harry Brown and I reside at 5431 Crump Road, Tallahassee. May I please honor the civility pledge and do not interrupt me until I have finished
Harry,
my speech.
Could you speak into the microphone? We can hardly hear you.
Mr. Gillum, most of the time that I come to speak, you find some reason to interrupt me. You do everything you can to prevent your cohorts from being embarrassed, especially Scott Maddox. Maddox brought all the embarrassment on himself. He did the things that I mentioned, and he knows it. I have never lied on Scott. However, he has lied on me many times. You go out of your way trying to protect his character when he has no character nor integrity. You said the things that I said about him have not been proven, yet there is enough circumstantial evidence to jail him. But you and Anita have gone out of your way to protect him. While doing what you did, you have destroyed many lives. You two have gone out of your way to hide and cover up the racism and bigotry that goes on in City Hall. Scott tried so painstakingly to destroy my life when he read from 3 pages of rubbish how I spent 19 years of grabbing and hugging women in elevators, sexually harassing women, and other debasing behavior. You heard all that being read about me and did not make one effort to stop him. But I come here and speak the truth about him, and you go out of your way to stop me. I hope you know that he doesn't care any more about you than he cares about me. The same thing he did to my family and me, he will do to you. You should go about trying to be comfortable with being who you are and not trying to be what Scott wants you to be. You have been a slave for Scott long enough. From the things I have seen with this commission, you all allow Scott to take the lead in what goes on in this government. Scott has taken the lead in name calling and calling me deranged, demented, and needing psychiatric help. I come to speak to you and the community about things that I know, not about things that I suspect or wish they were. I know you, Gillum, have high hopes of becoming the governor of Florida, but in my opinion, you do not stand a snowball's chance in hell of becoming the governor of this state. From what I have experienced with you, you do not have the compassion nor the temperance.
Excuse me, that's 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Brown, for your time.
Others have been watching you and feel that you are helping perpetuating
Excuse me, your time's expired.
And you are embarrassing a lot of people with your toady and bootlicking behavior. Stop, Gillum.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brown.
Next speaker is Erwin Jackson.
Actually, we're going to go ahead and take a break. We'll take the remainder of the speakers after the break.
Very good.
We'll be on recess until 6 p.m.
Wait, could I, we have a session at our church tonight that I'm going to participate in called Community Values and Faith Solutions. So I will be leaving, and I won't be here tonight for the public hearings.
That's why I wanted to go ahead with speakers too, is because I didn't know if I was going to be here for the public.
Oh, were you good? I'm sorry, what is the request?
I'd like to just keep taking all the speakers now because I'm not sure I'll be here for them. I want to hear what they had to say.
Got it. So we'll one second, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Jackson. There's order. There is order. 1 second. 1 second. There's order. Commissioner, I'll go ahead, given the fact that two of you appear to be leaving prior to the close of the meeting. We'll go ahead and continue with speakers at the request of two commissioners, and we'll forego our break.
Unless I misunderstood, Mr. Jackson will wait until later, which makes our next speaker Stanley Sims, and he'll be followed by Joe Berg.
Good evening, commissioners. First, you don't succeed. Try again.
Could you provide your name and address, please?
Stanley Sims, 1320 Avondale Way.
Thank you.
I presented earlier today at the Safety Commission, and after that commission, I spoke with some city staff, and there still seems to be some a lack of direction of where we're going. And this is a pilot program that was instituted almost 3 months ago by our city manager, and I'm needing direction. And I kind of feel slighted because 3 was presented and 2 got funded. And so I need some direction because it's personal. And I need a government that is responsive. I need a government that can give me a clear answer while I try to help with this issue. And I'm not getting clear answers. I'm getting some, and I've sent my, Commissioner Gil Ziffer, I apologize if I'm surprising you, but I have some concerns, and I didn't want to air them because I need further direction. And we're trying to, this is a reference to the proposal that I sent earlier today. But staff, when I went back to talk to staff to say, okay, well, what does this mean? Because we know we're fastly approaching the holiday season, and what we're going to do, they were kind of like, well, we really don't know. So I said, well, I'm going to stay here and kind of come back to you all to see if I can get some further direction from commissioners to give the staff as to my project. You know, Commissioner Maddox, this is a project that's going on, right? This is not something I'm asking you to help me start. This is something that is actually going on. that we are pulling people out of the hot zone, giving them jobs. The young man that is cleaning cars lives 3 doors down from Kevin Best. May he rest in peace. This young man that's working with me, Fridays and Saturday nights, he puts his kids in the back room. He's a part-time worker at Sears. He has old washers and dryers on one side of his house because of the bullets. So I'm asking for a response. I can't hire people when I'm only cleaning 8 cars. These cars are getting dirty anyway. If it's about me, just do this and think about the 21 people. But I need you all to give me some direction so I can keep this program alive, please.
That's 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Ziffer, did you want?
Wouldn't it, CHSP process would be the appropriate place. I would reach out to the United Way and CHSP, wouldn't it?
Commissioner Gil Ziffer, and when I attended the first community safety meeting, those were not the directions that was given to me by city staff. The directions that was given to me by city staff at that safety meeting was to pull a proposal together for immediate response in our community, because if I wait to the CSHP process,
sure,
that homicide number is going to continuously climb. And I'm asking, like you saw the urgency in the Crime Stopper and the other, please see the same urgency. And even though I know that my name may not be R.B. Holmes, or I wish I was Stanley Walker, but it's not about me. I've pulled people together that has the credibility. I'm just asking you to give me some support. If you can't give me some support, they say, well, Stanley, we're going to let this die on the vine, but don't keep me hanging out here, panicking, because I want to engage, but I'm knocking on doors
Mr. Sims,
that are locked.
Mr. Sims, I'll speak for my own self here. I think I'm in favor of a process under which we can evaluate proposals that help us address some of the underlying contributions to crime. That's what I asked for at today's meeting for Ms. Barber to bring back. We didn't have that part today, with the exception of the Crime Stoppers piece, which was an identified partner and presenter today. But that's where I am. I mean, I don't think this is a a free for all. I think it is. We need a process to evaluate what the need is, and I agree with you. One of those is jobs. And then allow us, the commission, to then, on the vetting of staff, to then approve a set of recommendations. That's just my piece.
Are you saying, Mr. Mayor, and I'm only asking for clarity, that you're saying that this pilot program that I've been piloting for 3 months is not one that you're going to take action on? Because I don't want to.
I'm not.
If you're going to say we're going to, because if the process that
you asked me a question, I don't mind responding, which is, this is not in respect to your program alone. I've talked with other human services providers that also have ideas about what they think they can do to help interrupt the cycle of violence. And I think we ought to evaluate all of them, yours included, should you be one to submit. But that process is not yet established outside of the CHSP process. And that's what I asked in our earlier meeting for Ms. Barber to bring back.
Okay, well, can you also tell me that whether or not the pilot program that the current city manager, I'm lost on the city managers here, are we going to continue that, or are we going to allow that to die? Because I'm not getting direction on it as well.
I'm not as familiar with that, so I'm going to have to let maybe one of the ACMs talk with you maybe after the meeting. I'm not clear on
They won't, sir. I've tried to reach out to our new interim.
I assure you they will after the meeting, or when we take a break. Maybe you can go back and see Cynthia for additional clarification. But this board at this time is not prepared to make a funding decision at this meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sims. Next speaker.
Next speaker is Joe Berg. He'll be followed by Joe West.
Joe. Joe, my back's out, so I'm going to be moving around. I don't want you to think I'm not listening to you. I will be. I'm just going to walk a minute.
I'm just trying to find the plug. Anybody know where the hole is?
I got that.
No comment.
Let me pick one. Where'd he go? Oh, there he is.
Sorry, they changed this around on me since I was here last. There it is. Okay. 115 West 6th Avenue. My name is Joe Berg. You all are used to hearing me speak about community development and balanced development. Today, I want to speak about a new organization that I've begun that has a way to impact every neighborhood and citizen, Shop Local 850. And I'm just going to step through a larger presentation. Our job is to make shopping local a cultural imperative in Tallahassee, and I want to explain why that has a really profound impact. Local businesses define Tallahassee, and when we're talking about tourism, there are people who go to places like Asheville and Savannah, and they come because local small businesses create the culture there. It's a gigantic market. They're the incubators of our culture economy. They hire the artists down to landscape architects to designers and the musicians. And they're what make us unique here in Tallahassee instead of anywhere USA. When you look at these great cities that we've gone and studied, they all have shopping local as something they do here. Now, is this just a feel-good mantra because it's hard to argue against? It's not. It's really an economic belief, and if we ingest it, we can really move the needle for Tallahassee's economy. 3 times more money stays local when you shop local. That's statistically valid. There's an organization called Civic Economics that's been doing this for 15 years. They've studied places that we have too, like Austin and Boulder. There's a list there. And they have found in retail and in other industries, here you can see 14% stays local when it's spent with a chain, 48 stays local when you spend it with a local business. And to be clear, we're not anti-chain, we're pro-local. There's a difference there. We just want everyone to understand the impacts of where they're shopping. Here is restaurants, a different situation, but similar. And also, there are chain champions and there are local stinkers. We can all agree about that. There's no such thing as a local cell phone. So we're not bashing anyone. The reason is more pay when you shop local. The profits stay local. You spend with local businesses. Chains and franchises are restricted from doing that. You hire your neighbors. It builds more community wealth that allows for more community development. It improves our neighborhoods because the money stays there. Local arts and culture, like I said, are incubated in those businesses. The environment's healthier because we're buying from here, from farmers who care about sustainability. We're accountable, and when the neighborhoods are making more money and circulating it, we're able to fix prime on our own. Blight on our own. It raises all ships. But here's the kicker. If we accept that 3 times rule, the Chamber of Commerce reported last year that $48 million in direct impact was because of the football programs. Taking that 3 times multiplier and assuming that 48 million, 100% of that stayed local, which it didn't, you come up with a pretty substantial number. Every 2.5% of local spending in Leon County in 2016 had the same exact impact as the football program. Here's how those numbers got crunched. That's not a hard needle to move, and today I've presented you with an option for Shop Local Holiday Weekend. It's a team lift. We'll be going to the county next week.
Excuse me, that's 3 minutes. Thank you very much, Joe. We did also get, obviously, your lengthy proposal here. Commissioner Ziffer, followed by Commissioner Miller.
I think we're both on the same page. Joe, thank you. Move approval of the whole program. I mean, it's good. And the resolution's going to have to be, we don't have another meeting until the 6th, which is a little bit late. Sure. So I don't know how you can work with our with our communications department.
We can produce
Get the
one.
effort out
Get it right
and move all this. I don't see anything on here I wouldn't be supportive of.
The resolution is symbolic. I think the commission could direct on all the other bullet points and.
Yeah, what I was going to suggest is, Allison, are you still here somewhere?
I mean, we have a work list here.
Allison, our communications department, if you get with Allison Ferris, I think the spirit of what we want to achieve is what you've put before us. There may be some things that we can do a different way. There may be some things that you haven't thought of. So I'm going to suggest that we put Joe with Allison. A resolution proclamation can be done. It may not be presented here, but we could present it at another place, and you would have that. So I would second Commissioner Miller's.
As listed, there's a press conference as well, which everyone would be invited to. And
One of the things that you asked for was approval of the COT logo on anything that you produce, and I certainly am supportive of that. So that's the only thing I thought might be, need action.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
There's thank you, Joe, for your contributions. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion passes unanimously.
That would be a win.
What's that?
That would be a win for everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Next speaker, Joe West, and then Curtis Baines.
Joe West, 2831 Dufton. In 2014, the voters in Tallahassee approved with an overwhelming majority the following in part. Shall the charter of the City of Tallahassee be amended to establish an ethics and anti-corruption policy, require the enactment of an ethics code, establishment of an independent ethics board with broad powers, creation of an ethics office and officer? Does this amendment indicate the citizens of Tallahassee wanted the City Commission to dictate what those ethics and anti-corruption codes should be? I don't believe it does. In fact, one might conclude the citizens did not want the Commission, its staff, or administrators writing these codes. I'm not an administrative lawyer. Thank you, Lord. But it seems to me having the Commission have the final say in what these codes governing their behavior are would be a conflict of interest and is pretty much like asking the fox to guard the henhouse. This analogy seems to be a fairly accurate assessment, judging by the behavior exhibited by this Commission over the past few months, which is disappointing to say the least. Ethics. If you need them written down, you don't have them.
Next speaker is Curtis Baines, then Bill Shack.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. Curtis Baines, 1323 East Tennessee Street. I know some of these things are going to be coming before you at some point through a workshop or something with respect to your ethics code, but I did want to, having reviewed or read some recent articles, make a few recommendations for you. The first is one that I had made previously, and that had to do with making Chapter 112 part of the city's ethics code. Once it's part of the city's ethics code, you can make it more stringent where you feel it's necessary. But I think that's a critical issue going forward. A second point has to do with revising your policy with respect to what constitutes a public record and who is entitled to amend and delete items from that public record. If, as I said earlier, if you assume that everything that has come to this point has been just an appearance of impropriety, well, surely you can appreciate that simply the appearance of impropriety can be as damaging to your reputation as an actual improper action. So I would urge you to take action when you're looking at these at your ethics code to decide what constitutes the public record that you expect. And the third thing that came to mind, and I read that this morning, I think, where it costs $22,000 to produce a record that has already been produced. And you spoke about this earlier, Doc, talking about the subpoenaed items that had been provided. And I saw today where the city was talking about a $22 charge to produce the same records for a private company. I know you took care of it earlier, but my point is, I think we need to go back and you need to revise and or certainly review the method you use for calculating the cost of producing these records. The idea is that any marginal cost could be reimbursed, but simply the cost of if you're appropriating money to do X, Y, and Z, and you spend your time doing X, that doesn't necessarily mean that X cost you that much money, okay? Because that's part of your responsibility. And as I said earlier, you set the ethics standards policy for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Next speaker is Bill Shack, and then Jim Cruz.
Bill Shack, 3109 Tipperary Drive. First, I want to say to these young men back here, as someone who's adopted a foster child, I think what you guys are doing is amazing, so thank you very much. Commissioners and Mayor, in front of me is a stack of Tallahassee Democrat newspaper front page sections since July. Headline after headline, article after article, story after story about Tallahassee's crime problem, murders, FBI investigation into CRA activities, possible corruption charges, ethical charges against city officials, and impropriety by the city manager. Almost every day for 5 months, there has been an article about problems with Tallahassee and City Hall. In addition, every day, multiple zings show the anger and frustration about your leadership and, of course, the FSU football team. Your reaction to those very concerning daily issues was to write a letter to the citizens where you dismissed these serious problems as the political headline of the hour or negativity of the moment. As citizens, I would argue they are much more serious. The City Commission, in unison, asked the citizens once again to trust them in light of serious ethics violations. Our community is calling for accountability and deserves action. In your letter, you mentioned that you elected us, and we will continue to do so, remain focused on the task at hand. Difficult decisions left to erode public confidence must be addressed decisively. It calls for leadership. Leadership you are failing to provide the citizens who demand results. As someone running for one of those seats up there, I will not shy away from or try to defer making tough decisions that secure public confidence. City Manager Rick Fernandez should have been suspended pending the outcome of any ethical and legal challenges. Instead, he was able to take a leave of absence with pay on his terms. I call for all the city commissioners to recommend the suspension of Rick Fernandez without pay. It's time to lead. Thank you.
Next speaker is Jim Cruz. Jim Cruz, and then Patricia Wilson.
My name's Jim Cruz. I live at 1816 Atlantis Place, City of Tallahassee. A speaker earlier started his presentation and didn't quite get through it. I happen to agree with a lot of it, so I'd like to continue it, and I've got a script. That was Ben Point Event. He's a retired attorney, former FDLE special agent, assistant state attorney, assistant attorney general, senior counsel, Florida Department of State. In his position as Attorney General's office, he was assigned as the prosecutor for the State Ethics Commission. I wanted to say I pretty much agree with him, and what the City Commission, the action taken by the City Commission related to what he was talking about, ethics, etc., Ethics Commission. Instead of encouraging citizens and city employees to report ethical violations, they voted to discourage reporting. In fact, they have practically dared anyone to report suspected ethical violations. Their vote requires that a complaint to the city ethics officer must be in writing and sworn to, so the reporting person's name will become known. The threat of revenge, possible lawsuit, or termination from city employment are very real considerations and frightening to people who have reason to believe unethical activity is occurring. So they don't give their information to Ethics Board, and the ethical activity further erodes our trust in city government. I totally agree with that, and apparently a lot of other people do. TPD, Leon County Sheriff's Office, FDLE, FBI, U.S. Secret Service, Florida Department of Business Regulation, Florida Department of Health, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They allow anonymous reports of wrongdoing. So have the city of Tallahassee stand out as not allowing that, I think is not quite correct. So I also would like to ask you to reconsider your decision. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Next speaker is Patricia Wilson. You marked, Ms. Wilson, you marked a public hearing. I just want to make sure, were you speaking on a particular public hearing item or on the unagended portion like these other speakers? If so, you're next. You're next. Okay. Then next is Shayna Lopez Rivas. And Mayor, as she. Okay.
That's fine.
Yeah. So, Mayor, I don't believe I have any other speakers who wish to speak at this time. There are some who, as you have heard, would like to speak at the conclusion of our public hearings when we have our unattended speakers. And I do have 2 speakers for public hearings, but no one else at this time.
That's fine. We may lose quorum after the public hearing portion, but since there won't be an action item, a vote, it'll be fine. All right. Are there any other comments at this time? There are any other speakers that wish to make comments at this time? Seeing none, we'll be in recess for 7 minutes. 15.01. City Attorney.
15.01 is first and only public hearing on Resolution 17-R-41. It's the proposed abandonment of 6.5 foot wide portion of the right-of-way adjacent to the southern boundary of certain parcels located at 608, 616, and 620 West Lafayette Street.
I have no speakers on 1501.
Move approval.
Second.
There's a motion.
I'm sorry, Mayor, this gentleman looks like he's filling out his form as we speak. Okay.
We'll give him 1 minute.
Sounds like you had a motion and a second, Mayor, but we'll let this speaker take his 3 minutes, and if you'll give your name and address for the record, we'll finish the form for you.
My name is Cicero Hartsfield. My address is 3971 Emerald Chase, and I got the notice in the mail, and I'm just not familiar with what was to take place here, and I was hoping I would hear more discussion versus just, so I represent some property owners in the area, and I was trying to get a better understanding of what this taking was, and this is abandoned property. So I have more questions than I have any opposition or affirmation to what is being proposed.
I'm wondering, Cicero, if you want to maybe get with staff after to clarify any questions that you might have on the item. There is a motion and a second that we're going to act on. I don't know. Who is there staff that's marshaling this that he can speak with?
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
Is this city-owned property or this just abandoned property?
Welcome up.
It's right-of-way that we're
It's public right-of-way that we're abandoning.
Yeah, it's right away.
Exactly. It's a city right-of-way, that 6-foot, 5-foot strip that would allow them to do an expansion to a building on the site. It's been incorporated into a full street design, and staff from several departments has reviewed it, and we can share the plan with you.
I'm clear, you're permitting a business or private owner to build in the right-of-way? Is that what it's saying?
Well, it won't be right away after the abandonment.
Commissioners, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion passes 4-0. Commissioners are now on to item 15.02.
1502 is the first and only public hearing on ordinance number 17-Z-31. Is a proposed amendment to the Magnolia Center plan unit development.
Mayor, we have one speaker on this item, Wade Pitt.
Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, Wade Pitt, Innovia Consulting Group. I'm here on behalf of Tallahassee, Palmetto Tallahassee Magnolia Drive LLC, soliciting your support. We've made it all the way through the process to here. We have 2 conditions of approval that came out of the Planning Commission, which we've already addressed, and pending an affirmative vote. Tonight, we will have the PUD in Planning's hand for sign-off. So I'm here to answer any questions and to enlist your support for approval of the PUD.
Move approval, Mr. Mayor.
Great. There's a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor, if there are no questions, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion passes 4-0. Commissioner Miller out of chamber. Item 15.03.
15.03 is the first and only public hearing on ordinance number 17-Z-32. Is a proposed addition of property to the local register of historic places and amendment of the official zoning map to change the zoning classification from Central Core zoning district to Central Core zoning district with historic preservation overlay.
Have one speaker on this item, Mayor. On 1503, we have Edward Holofield.
Who?
Dr. Holofield.
Next speaker.
He was the only speaker on 1503.
Move the item, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve item 15.03. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion passes 4-0. item.
That completes the public hearing, Mayor.
Great. Commissioners, we're now at the point in the meeting to resume unagenda speakers.
Mayor, the first speaker at this time is Brian Jackson, followed by Irwin Jackson.
Your relation?
Brian Jackson, 2110 Jackson Bluff Road.
Hey, Brian.
I just wanted to continue the debate regarding the city manager, Fernandez. I am, to be just put quite frank, very disappointed that he is not, well, I'm happy he is suspended, but for the fact that he's still getting paid after he has been proven to have lied to not only yourselves, but to the public, that's inexcusable in my opinion. And I would, if you have any clarification on why you do that, I mean, he's at home, he's still getting paid. If I don't show up to work, I don't get paid. That just seems like a very logical explanation, for that question. So that's all I wanted to say, and if you could answer that question, just make me understand why, why that's okay. He can sit home and get paid, and after he's a proven liar. So, thank you.
Great, thank you. Next speaker.
Next is Irwin Jackson, then Joe Norman.
Dr. Irwin Jackson, Tallahassee Truth Teller, 1341 Jackson Bluff. I'm the self-appointed leader of the 83% of voters in Tallahassee who believe every city commissioner is a crook. I've determined the other 17% have never heard of this commission. We had evidence of that tonight. I talked with our new acting city commissioner and asked the city manager and explained to him we had a group of people wanted to talk on item 13.06. We agreed we wouldn't have enough time early in the meeting, so I agreed to invite everyone to be here at 6 o'clock. The only question was to make sure the commission didn't vote on item 1306 until the public had an opportunity to speak on an agenda item. Obviously, that didn't go very far. I know that the mayor makes the decisions. He wanted to have a decision made without any public input. He doesn't follow much public input, so it doesn't really matter. To my other comments on Rick Fernandez. Rick Fernandez is a proven liar. He takes bribes from city contractors. He has stolen over $15,000 in city construction materials and city labor. And yesterday he admitted to destroying government documents to hide his criminal activities. He is also a coward for not meeting with citizens tonight, choosing to stay at home, hiding under his bed. Members of the 83% movement demand Fernandez be fired tonight, not given a $20,000 a month vacation. City Attorney Shelley acts as a criminal defense attorney, advising this commission of crooks how to break laws and not get punished. Shelley defended Maddox when he violated the residency laws. Shelley's defending Maddox and Gillum as they prepare to deal with the FBI investigation. Members of the 83% movement demand that this commission direct Shelley to immediately stop providing Maddox and Gillum criminal defense services at the public's expense. City commissioners have known about Fernandez's criminal activities for several months now, and they've acted to hide the truth from the public. This commission's actions were intended to help Fernandez avoid or escape detection, arrest, trial, or punishment. And therefore, it seems clear that each of you are guilty of Florida Statute 777.031, the crime of accessory after the fact. I strongly encourage this commission to try something a little different. It's called honesty for a change. Make it easier to expose corruption. Make all public information requests regarding city commission corruption free from charge. Publish those at the city website. One last thing, something good happened today to some extent. We've started in the right direction. In addition to FBI and the Sheriff's Office, we should include FDLE. Any request publicly of those 3 organizations should be made public in total. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
I'm happy the way you handled this.
Joe Norman, followed by Patricia Wilson. Joe Norman.
Good evening. My name is Joe Norman, 5647
Santa Anita Drive.
Hey, Joe.
I'd like to talk with you about an issue that adversely affects the state of Florida, Leon County, but is focused right here in Leon County. And that's the way the Florida Bar conducts its protection of lawyers. I can speak from a first-hand experience that that's true. And I'll go on to explain how I had the authority to present this to a grand jury, but was denied that opportunity by Willie Meggs. And I'll just read a couple of headlines. South Florida earns a spot on the list of judicial hellholes for the 9th year in a row. There are a number of similar articles that talk about the state of the legal industry in Florida and what a pitiful shape it's in. The focus of that problem is the Florida Bar headquartered not too far from here in the city of Tallahassee. Grand jurors in the state of Florida have a very, very unique experience, and that authority is provided under the Florida statutes, and I'll read it to you, it's a very brief one. It says it's the duty of a grand juror. Now, I sat on the grand jury in the last half of 2012. It says the duty of a grand juror having knowledge of offense, who knows or has reasons to believe that an indictable offense triable within the county has been committed shall report the information to the grand jury and be sworn as a witness in the investigation. I have absolutely no doubt that I could indict the Florida Bar under Florida RICO law. No doubt at all. I tried to make that presentation as mandated by Florida statute and also a document called the 30, that's 30 Florida Grand Jury Handbook. Very specific language, clear, not ambiguous. Willie Meggs would not let me make the presentation. Instead, he makes the presentation in about 5 minutes, wouldn't let me be in the room, and says, well, you have no case. The grand jury's decided. Well, Mr. Meggs, one, was a member of the organization that I wanted to indict, conflict of interest. I contend that Mr. Meggs' conduct was jury tampering and obstruction of justice at a minimum. Well, I take this to FDLE. The investigator that I talked with, now FDLE is not far from here, and we all know that a person has a scope of authority that protects his professional status. But when he exceeds that scope of authority, he becomes a person.
Excuse me, that's 3 minutes.
Free.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Next speaker is Patricia Wilson, then Shayna Lopez Rivas.
Good evening. I'm Patricia Wilson. I live at 2204 Tunbridge Court, and I'm the writer of No Ethics, No Accountability, and No Shame, and I'm very sorry for that. But it's very embarrassing to be here. I'm embarrassed for you, and it makes me very sad.
Don't be.
I am
We were elected
embarrassed
for
for
this.
you.
We were elected
Federal
for this.
subpoenas. Federal subpoena. I couldn't sleep. I would be sick. And I just don't know how y'all do it. That's it.
Okay.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Shayna Lopez Rivas, then Don, I'm not sure if it's Easter maybe?
I'm not as tall as Erwin Jackson, sorry. My name is Shayna Lopez Rivas, and I have lived in Tallahassee for the last 5 years. As an FSU alum with a job here in town, I have roots here and real stakes in our community. I'm here today to express my deep disappointment with every single one of you. I am appalled at the ethics that our city leadership has, or rather extremely lacks. Why is the city giving no-bid contracts? Why is our city manager being given the equivalent of a paid vacation when there is plenty of evidence that he both lied to the public and that he stole city construction materials and labor? Why did you all recently vote to weaken the already non-existent ethics ordinance? Do you not believe in having a strong ethics ordinance? One in which would squash unethical and corrupt behavior before it became such an issue that the FBI is now investigating our city, or rather, all of you. We shouldn't be weakening ethics. We should be strengthening them. As a citizen, even if I disagree with your political ideology, I should be able to trust you to lead this city in an upright, moral fashion. I should be able to trust that you know the difference between right and wrong, and that you will always, always, always do the right thing. Right now, I trust all of you to do the right thing about as much as I would trust a 5-year-old to drive. Mayor Gillum, you are currently running a campaign for governor in which you say you will do everything you can to make sure the state of Florida works to serve all of us. Yet you haven't fired City Manager Fernandez, despite evidence of his unethical and illegal actions. I wonder what the $20,000 we are paying him a month to not do his job could be used for instead. I think Godby or Rickers or Lincoln or any one of the high schools here in Tallahassee could use that money. I think that there are homeless shelters here in town that could use that money. Foster care children in Tallahassee, like the ones I am court appointed to protect, could use that money. You want to run for governor and you say you work for all of us, then you should be the first to advocate that Fernandez gets fired so we are done wasting our tax dollars on someone who does not deserve them. Who are you serving by allowing him to stay on the payroll? But truth be told, it's not just about you, Mr. Mayor. It's about all of you. Every city leader who does not care about this community, but rather cares about protecting their own self-interests. I am saddened and ashamed to say that right now, our city government and all of you who lead it have no shame, no ethics, and no accountability.
Thank you.
Wow.
Next speaker is Don, I believe it's Easter.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Don, and I believe the last name is Easter.
Don. Come on,
I know
Don.
the first name is Don, so I don't.
Don Casto.
Casto. I apologize.
All right, Don.
Sorry about that.
Easter, Casto, I was close.
Probably my fault. Penmanship. Thank you. My name's Don Casto. I live at 6504 Mahan Drive. I brought my family to Tallahassee in 1980. We moved here and felt this was a wholesome, safe place to raise our kids and let them go to school and enjoy life in the city. I went farther south first, but decided to settle in Tallahassee. Let me just say first, there are a lot of good, honest, hard-working folks downtown that work for the city of Tallahassee. They also deserve the same kind of a place to grow their kids and live in a wholesome, clean, and safe and honest environment to work in. I came down here today to speak to that and to try and bring to the light the corrupt and illegal activities that I've been reading in the paper that are disappointing so many of the citizens of Tallahassee. And it's just disturbing, and I couldn't sit at home any longer without coming down here and just voicing my opinion. Mr. Mayor, why is Mr. Fernandez still on payroll? There are far better uses for that money since he has basically admitted to this, or this has been proven that he's done this theft and used city labor and property for his own personal use. There's far better use of that money than to continue to pay him. And why did it take, why wasn't anything done to Mr. Fernandez when it was reported to the ethics committee that was developed here? Why did it have to go past that point to the state ethics board? And why wasn't it, why couldn't they weren't able to handle it in this board? It was supposed to be its sole purpose. It didn't happen. Why is it okay for city employees to make repairs to your own personal property? It's clear to me that the problem is a little bit more widespread than Mr. Fernandez. If a supervisor in any other department took a city crew to their house and did repairs with city materials and city employees, what would happen to him? What would happen to him? He wouldn't be paid administrative leave, go home, sit and wait for things to happen to him. He'd be gone. I've been in construction for 30 years. It's disappointing for me to have to come down here and make these kind of statements before the people that represent the taxpayers of this city. That's not what it's all about. We need somebody on this commission that's honest, that has the integrity to rebuild Tallahassee's reputation so that our children can continue to live here and be proud to be called Tallahassee their home.
Great.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you so much.
Next speaker is Greg Marr, and followed by David West, and Mr. Mayor, Mr. Marr, and then Mr. West, and that's the last speaker that I have at this time.
Great, thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Greg Marr. I live at 236 Nab Loop. That's out Buck Lake Road. I've lived in Tallahassee since I was born here 60-plus years ago. I'm an attorney trying my best to retire. I am retired from the state of Florida. Many of those years I spent as a sworn special agent and then inspector with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, a special unit out of the Commissioner's Office. Back then we called it executive investigations. I think now it's called public corruption. So I know it when I see it. And this Fernandez scandal, you can smell this from the corner of Tennessee and Monroe. And then it brings a stench on the reputation of this city. I'm here to encourage you to beef up the portfolio of your Commission on Ethics. Give them some meaningfulness in the scheme of city government here in Tallahassee. You know that a great majority of the people here adopted that modification of our city government. I think you ought to honor that expression by your constituents. And I encourage you to take immediate and effective action regarding the Fernandez scandal. That really needs to be cleaned up right away. It sets a bad example for the whole city, the things that have been allowed to go on and that the city manager played an instrumental role in, lying, covering up. We used to call it unlawful compensation, if not bribery. So these are very serious matters, and I think it would do the city's image a great deal to clean up our own house. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker. Next speaker is David West.
Good evening. I'm David West. I live at 3030 Shamrock Street North. That's where I really live. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Commission, and all esteemed public servants here this evening, thank you for your service to our community. You've taken on thankless and arduous positions as leaders in our community, and for that I am very grateful. However, it is time now for most of you to pass the reins on to other willing citizens. I am here to encourage our current commissioners, with perhaps one exception, and our mayor, and especially our city manager, to resign your positions as soon as is practical. It is my firm belief that you have betrayed the public trust, if not by outright violations of the law, but by certainly your unethical behavior. As a father to a Cub Scout and a former Scout myself, I know that the very first law of Scouting is that a Scout is trustworthy. This very same tenet should be applied to all of our public servants. We place our city in your hands, and we trust that you will do the right thing on our behalf. You have failed us. In 2014, in response to demands from the voting public, the City of Tallahassee's charter was changed, and this change placed a limit of $250 for campaign contributions from any one individual. We placed this restriction on campaigns in order to avoid giving too much voice to any single person with deep and willing pockets. Yet each of you has found ways to circumvent the will of the people. Knowing that our intent was to limit contributions, let me ask you a rhetorical question. Is it ethical for you to accept 10 $250 donations from the same person just because that person owns 10 different companies? It absolutely is not. While this may be technically legal, it is most definitely unethical. Yet each of you has accepted multiple contributions in this manner. It may just be 2 or 3, but one member of this board, who unfortunately isn't here right now, has accepted $2,500 from one wealthy person through 10 companies that he owns. That same commissioner has also accepted $12,500 from a South Florida lobbyist through organizations that he controls. This unethical behavior must stop. Now, moving on, the papers are full of examples of impropriety on the part of our commissioners and our city manager. As for Mr. Fernandez, he has 30 years of service to the city. He knows full well what can be accepted and what cannot. Whether he initiated the request for football tickets or not is immaterial. He accepted them, and there is no doubt about that. What if a purchasing manager for the city had accepted similar gifts?
Excuse me, that's 3 minutes.
Thank you very much for your time. And is there another speaker, or is that the final one?
Mr. Mayor, I believe that is the last speaker.
Great. So a sincere appreciation to all of you for taking time and coming down and petitioning your government. This is exactly what democracy looks like, and you're always invited back. Commissioners, are there any final sharing of ideas before we adjourn? No, sir. Seeing none, anything from the appointed?
No, sir.
All right, we stand at adjournment. Good evening.